J. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. We're coming to you from Ghana, West Africa. We're in an area called Nuninga, about an hour, a little bit more, hour and a half outside of the beautiful city of Accra, Ghana, West Africa. We are very near or adjacent to the community you may have heard of called Pram Pram, where definitely a lot of African Americans have expatriated, come over to Ghana, built homes and everything, and there's a concentration of Black Americans here in the neighboring community of Pram Pram. But we are at the African Ancestry Wall, which is a landmark here for Black Americans visiting this part of the continent. It's really mind-blowing is the word that I have since our stay here. There's a bed and breakfast, there's a restaurant, and then the wall itself, which contains portraits of heroes of the struggle, icons of the movement from every point of the diaspora. There's a story, Brother Jerry Johnson has a story for us and can tell you what each struggle icon really did and accomplished in their time in the earth. And it is definitely a powerful honoring, a powerful commemoration of the life and legacy of our struggle icons from every aspect of the diaspora. Which brings me to today's conversation, right? We'll walk along the wall here. You see behind me Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Mama Winnie Mandela, Dr. Ben over there, just so many different icons. We're going to walk along the wall and have this conversation about diaspora, something that has been, I guess the word is troubling me, is that a lot of times when we say diaspora, we're thinking from a distinctly American descendant of slaves perspective. And we're thinking that we have connective tissue to African minds all across the world. True. And then when you hear others who are from Africa or from the UK and all that, and they speak of diaspora, there's a lot of activity here in Ghana where the people are always talking about, diaspora. Africa is calling the children home. There's references to the 2019 year of return, and now we're in the season of beyond the return, and all of that. And in 2019, tens of thousands of Black folk came down to Ghana to experience the year of the return, dropped their dollars. I'm talking about Steve Harvey, Oprah, football players, basketball players, actors. I mean, we came in droves and contributed greatly to the economy of Ghana and contributed greatly to an awakening of our consciousness. Needless to say, this has been one of the points of our conversations here. We've had some very rich, culturally relevant conversations here, just sitting around the table with some of the people here. This notion of since George Floyd was murdered, while that has been going on in Black communities for years, for decades, this is the history of it, this overt police brutality. It was just that the one notion of witnessing the murder of George Floyd just caused an awakening across the community, right, in Black America. And it's causing people to think, okay, well, maybe I need to move to Africa. Maybe I need to return to the continent from where my ancestors came. And for me, I'm the same way. I'm actually seriously considering, how do we do that? What does that look like, And so as we advance this, this building bridges of music, arts, and culture with Africa and African America, we're learning more on the African side so that we can be better equipped to inform you all, to inspire you all, to, just hopefully bring our innovations, our education and all that to the continent and join with those educated and inspired people that are here. We're not to be the Messiah complex and everything like that, but to join forces, because if we join forces, we believe that we can have a stronger Pan-African presence in the world. And that's really what I'm all about, and really that's what we're all about and trying to accomplish, especially through the vehicle of Coffee Conversations with Greg J, Beach City Radio, Beach City Perspective. But we're here at the African Ancestry Wall. Those of you in Long Beach, listen. Brother Jerry's not from Long Beach, so like when you ask him the famous question, what high school did you go to? He didn't go to high school in Long Beach, but he had some years in his time in Long Beach, in North Long Beach, District 9. And, you know, when we mentioned that we were from Long Beach, oh man, he just stopped what he was doing and came and hugged us and everything. And so we've been having great conversations about, you know, Long Beach. He didn't know that we just elected our first African-American mayor. He was shocked about it, you know, you know, it's, hey, that's history, you know, real talk, right? And so he, you know, confirmed that piece there, that's definitely an aspect of history that is worth mentioning, right? And so congratulations from Brother Jerry. I'm sure, well, he's running around there somewhere. They're building a library. I don't know. Let's see if you can see that back there. There's a GoFundMe out there if you're interested in the library, helping Brother Jerry build up this library. You can do that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. We've donated to that cause greatly, and it's really good to see that it is almost finished and the work is ongoing. It's not, you know, willy-nilly. It's really a solid piece of construction going on, and the solid educational programs for the different schools that are in this general area as we bring them to this complex to learn about history. They're struggle icons from across the world, right? And so that's what we like to see. We're just going to walk along this wall. I hope I don't trip because I'm kind of walking backwards here. Well, maybe I won't. Anyway, yeah, so we've been having this notion about diaspora. And oftentimes when we're in these academic settings or these business conferences, you know, what got us is that they're talking about diaspora, and we're saying, oh man, they're welcoming us home, or welcoming us home. And, you know, as we listen closely to the rhetoric, it almost becomes like, you know what? They're not really talking about us, you know, and it's been vexing my spirit. I said, that person's not talking. I've been dismissive, if you will, of certain people who at first I felt that they were celebrated for their talk and the mission that they were engaged in. But really, I started listening to them and all they were talking about was their country and so I'm like, well, they're not really talking to me. They want to exclude me because to me, what I was hearing, as I was hearing it, I should say, it was sounding like they were being exclusive and not really including the diaspora. You know, they are talking about the Ghanaians that have gone on and gotten their education. Perhaps they got jobs in the UK, got jobs over in the US, these high-paying jobs and these high-level skill sets that they have developed. And then what the call to the diaspora is that these Ghanaians should now bring their skills home so that they can help develop Ghana to the next level. Now, you know, there's been a couple of questions on my social media about the economy and some other aspects of Ghana. And, you know, make no mistake, it is a developing country, but there are crazy opportunities for us as Americans over here. And I'll get to that, if not in this video, certainly another time. I just want to really concentrate on the notion of diaspora. So, you know, my spirit's been vexed. I'm like, okay, they're not really talking to us. They're talking to their own. And here we are with that feeling that we're being excluded. And that's the feeling that we have when we see this chasm between continental Africans and African Americans, right? And so when you all are talking about, oh, they think they're better than us and all this whole thing, sometimes that falsehood is exacerbated by when you're hearing this talk and they're saying diaspora, but when they're talking about it, they're not really talking to us. Okay, now having explained all of that, we were at a conference the other day that was very, very powerful in substance because they had as featured speakers the head of the immigration service. So now you're hearing about how to get your visa, what do you need to do in order to get visa to get into the country, you know, if you're a retiree, if you want to open a business, all of that. They also had the Minister of Tourism. They had the tax man, the equivalent to the IRS, that guy there, because taxes are a little crazy when you sit at a restaurant and you see, okay, you get your bill and then you start seeing all these taxes that are attached to your purchase. It's a little bit unnerving, but anyway, the tax man was there. The sister that is the head of their health, one of the senior executives of their health services, was there to discuss what kind of health facilities are here in Ghana, and what kind of because that's probably a lot of times one of the number one, right, concerns of folks that want to go to Ghana. I hear that a lot. Okay, I want to know about their health services. But anyway, at this particular conference, the sister was there giving us some valuable information about their health system. There was another lady there that is called the Bureau of Standards, the Ministry of Standards. And so she's in charge of like weights and measures and what does it mean to, what are the rules in exporting, materials and goods out of Ghana to the United States. I was very interested in that because there's a lot of coffee and cocoa here, and as a sidebar, a little interested in that, and you'll be hearing about that a little bit more about that. But how do you export out of Ghana? What are the rules? How do you export into Ghana out of the United States? What are the rules to say you want to build a factory here, right? And you need a certain type of equipment. Well, you can't just ship the equipment into the country. It needs to be calibrated to the standards set forth by the government of Ghana, and permits and licenses and thus and so is there. So the sister was there to explain that to us. I mentioned the immigration, tourism, Social Security. They have a robust Social Security system here. So they talked about that because basically, there's a lot of levels to that. So I'm just going to give you a couple of headlines, and maybe one day we'll be able to even get that minister on. But if you're a business owner, part of your fiduciary financial contributions to the country is that you're paying into their Social Security system, right? And it's just like ours, where you're banking up this, fund of money that is supposed to take care of you once you are retired or unable to work. It's similar to that, except that they have some very stringent age limits on it. Pretty much after 45, there's a couple of tiers. So after 45, the main tier, you can't contribute into that. There's a couple of second tiers that you can contribute after 45. After 50, you're down to the last tier. If you're over 60, just forget about it. You're not in it. Okay, so that's really the headlines. There are some nuances to those. It's not as point blank as I've described them, and it's just a little more. The devil is in the details. Let's say it like that, right? So that was the conference there. But what was most interesting and most valuable for me is that Dr. Erica Bennett, who is the head of the Diaspora African Forum, DAF, Diaspora African Forum. This is an embassy that is a diplomatic mission that is established on the grounds of the W.E.B. Du Bois Memorial Cultural Center, which is right in Accra, Ghana. Sidebar, W.E.B. Du Bois in his later years expatriated from the United States, came to Ghana and got a plot of land and a home, and lived out his last 3 years of life here in Ghana. He is buried here in Ghana. So his home is there at the Cultural Center. His tomb is there. There's a lot of events and everything happening. The African Americans in Ghana Association is headquartered there. But there is the Diaspora African Forum, which is an official embassy, an official diplomatic mission representing the African Union, and it represents us in the diaspora, even us African descendants of slaves, American descendants of slaves, right, we should say, and really giving us a diplomatic voice, if you will, in the whole aspect of coming back to Ghana or coming into Ghana to live, to work, to contribute to society. They can help you quite a bit with everything that you need, going through all of their systems, going through all of their the deals that they need you to do in order to be a part of Ghanaian society. But the sister was there, Dr. Erica Bennett. We're going to have her on Coffee Conversations really soon here. But she began to explain the terminology of diaspora, right? So you have continental diaspora, meaning those who were born in Africa, the various 54 nations of Africa, who have gone abroad, been educated in foreign places, or maybe they were educated here in Africa, but they began to exercise their careers outside of the continent, in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in Brazil, and wherever across the world. The Netherlands is big, Germany is big, right? They've gone on and they've become executives, or really achieved quite a bit in their various fields after getting their education, or got their education at out in these different countries. Maybe they've even settled into those countries now, and now have wife and kids, husband and kids, home, just now really living in America, living in the UK and those countries, right? And so now there is a very much a clarion call for those Ghanaians to bring those skills and education home to build up Ghana. And I think that's a noble thing, and we can talk a little bit about what that really, really means, because, while that is a noble call, if you look at a lot of the young people here that we've talked to, a lot of young executives who are working in the spaces that we have gone in, when we talk about it, they want to go to America. They don't want to use their education to live up here. And I think that's an interesting paradigm that is we need to sit down and hopefully discuss, and maybe even change if they want to change that. But the young people here are talking about, I want to go to America. Why would you want to come to Ghana? So it's interesting. But the continental diaspora out there, Ghana is asking for those brothers and sisters to come home and build up their country. Then there is the historic diaspora. That's where we come in, American descendants of slaves. We don't know for the most part where we're from. We're not born here. I'm from San Diego, California. Y'all from Detroit, Harlem, Atlanta, Brooklyn, Bronx, Chicago, Detroit. You know what I'm saying? It's like we are Americans. But our history is we're descendants of slaves. We can trace our family maybe a couple of generations back. And for the most part, those generations come out of the South, where slavery was abundant and definitely a part of this institution of America, right? And so this is the historical diaspora. When I heard that explanation, I was like, okay, now I get it, right? I get it now. There are actual different, definitions, designations, if you will, of the diaspora. When we talk about the diaspora, it's not a one size fits all. And each of us has a different perspective, right? We definitely have a different perspective, of what our space is in this land called America, right? And so this is very much an interesting thing that we learned. I began to say, and I take everything back that I said bad about these Africans I'm hearing at the podium talking about diaspora this, diaspora that, and feeling left out, because I'm not left out. I also learned that the African Union, which is the, global entity that all of the African nations belong to, has defined 5 sections, if you will, regions of the African Union. And that the historical diaspora, those of us in the United States, those of us in the Caribbean, those of us in Brazil and Curacao and all of these different nations where the transatlantic slave trade made its touch points after stealing the people out of Africa. This is now called the 5th region. There's 5 regions on the continent, north, south, 4 regions, I should say, north, south, east, and west, right? And then now they have added the fifth region, which is those of us that are across the seas, across the Atlantic, where our ancestors were delivered after being taken from the motherland back in the day in the slave trade, right? And they even created a flag, a logo that is officially recognized by the African Union and therefore officially recognized, I guess, at the United Nations level. We're going to be trying to locate we're going to discuss that with Dr. Erica Bennett when she comes to Coffee Conversations with Greg J. That's going to be a very, very interesting discussion. Right, and so it's just been a trip that is very, very rich, very, very interesting. Now, we've been here the entire month of December, going on into January. There's a purpose for the extended stay. This Ghana in December is actually a very big tourism thing where Black people from all over the world descend on Ghana, and there's festivals and music and concerts and parties and get-togethers, and it's a big thing. Ghana in general celebrates Christmas on 10 for the entire week. Between Christmas and New Year's, businesses are closed, and most businesses, a lot of businesses, I won't say most because I don't know, but a lot of businesses are closed. During that week, there's a lot of parties and get-togethers every single day of the week. It's been off the chain, right? Ghana in December, and people are coming from all over the diaspora, both continental diaspora and historical diaspora. We've met a lot of people from the UK, Germany, Netherlands, Russia even, you know what I'm saying? One thing I will say, when I see the Americans here, maybe our young folks, you know, I guess what's underscored for me with the young people is that we just need to continue to try to inform them about their brothers and sisters in Africa. It's more than a party. Just because we come from America, you can't come here like we're going to teach them something. I think we need a little more temperance in how we intersect with our brothers and sisters on the continent. They're not uneducated. They're not savages. They're not. You know, I'm just telling you what I see. You know, and I just think that we need a more compassionate way to intersect with our brothers and sisters, because we really need to be able to build together. That's really what it's all about. We're not better than them. They're not better than us. We're all equal. And one thing is sure, we're all Black. So if we're really all about this consciousness, like we say, if we're really awakening, especially in the wake of the George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, thus and so many names, if we're in this space of awakening, then, you know, we definitely need to be more compassionate when we begin to intersect with our brothers and sisters in Africa. It's a different vibe. You know, it's not the United States. The things that are happening here are not the United States. You know, though, as an example, this is it's kind of lightweight, but it's not really. You need to develop patience, because these Africans, these Ghanaians, are on their own timeline. You know, and it's not a diss. I've actually become quite adept at managing their lateness, managing having to wait for my food for a long time, or when I do order food, being told after waiting that it's not available. I've mastered the fact of going in and asking the restaurant, you know, what's available, to make sure that I don't have that problem. You know, I've seen people go smooth off on the Africans to the point where, you know, it was just very straight rude that they've been able to just to have an expectation of quick, fast, and in a hurry that happens in America. Now, I'm going to say this, and maybe you'll feel me and maybe you won't, right? The whole thing is, once we begin to vibe in that flow, we can still be efficient in who we are as professionals, right? We can still deliver excellence, but there is a freedom in not stressing. We are under so much stress and intensity in the United States that you could see on the outside looking in how that is affecting our health, our well-being. We're not built to be that way, right? It's really all about having patience. Now, I'm not saying being slothful, because you know what, to be honest with you, there's some slothfulness that I'm just going to tell you. What I see sometimes is slothfulness, and maybe that's a little harsh, but it's just facts, man, right? So you got to try to find this happy medium that's comfortable for you, because they're going to take their time. Driving in Accra, man, I think I saw one traffic light. I understand Accra is a very large city, millions of cars, millions of people, but it is controlled chaos. It is beyond measure what you see out here. And if you're riding along in your Uber or whatever, and you're just like, holy crap, man. I mean, it's just really, really crazy. However, I think I could do it. Now, I've been here long enough now where I see, okay, this is, I've been with some drivers that, okay, this is how they wheel their vehicle through all this right here. But I have not seen one accident. They probably have them, right? But really, honestly, how they do this is crazy. Everywhere, even on the motorways, what we call a freeway or a highway. They call it the motorway. Even on those, man, I mean, it's just the way people drive. It's kind of nutso, right? But, I don't see accidents. Another thing that I don't see is, homelessness. And I think the preservation of the family is very, very spiritual and essential. And we can have a few other coffee conversations about this aspect, because I think preservation of the family is key to our development as a people. When we really begin to take apart the vestiges of colonization, the vestiges of white supremacy, chattel slavery, Jim Crow, thus and so, we see that a key tactic is the destruction of the family, something that in this generation, even in these generations, we still haven't really recovered from, right? But family is crazy, crazy important, and you can see that family plays an important part in preserving people's well-being out here on these streets. You don't see homelessness. You certainly don't see, the mentally ill. We have a lot of conversation about mental health in Ghana, and it's really bananas, right? I'm sorry, not in Ghana, but in the U.S., because we see people walking the streets stark raving mad, bad drugs or just broken people from what's happening out here in these societies. You don't see that in Ghana, and I find that very, very interesting. Do you see poverty? Well, we would call it poverty, but I'm still trying to figure out, is it really poverty from their minds, right? It's a developing country. You have to understand that, and you have to consider that in every aspect of your being. Is yeah, okay, but is it poverty? Because everybody's selling. Everywhere you go, they're selling something. The ladies on there with the bucket on their head, that you stop at one of the few stoplights, or if the traffic cop is out there controlling traffic and he stops you there, the women come out with the baskets, and they're selling everything from, yesterday I bought some plantain chips, from the lady. You can buy water, you can buy toothpaste, breath mints, sunglasses, radio. I mean, they're selling everything. It's really, really something. And you see shops all along the streets here. I think among our videos that we're posting across our social media, you'll see us some videos of us driving through marketplaces and everything. This is what you see, where it's just like when we see homeless encampments under freeway overpasses, right? Those would be shops of people selling stuff, and it's very, very interesting. Now, where I think personally, and I'm not here to run the country, I'm just telling you, those are also untaxed, unlicensed businesses. It's just a word of honor that they have that space. They have the right to use that space. They're doing their shop, their business, they're conducting their business there, and that. But I think that revenue stream to the government, so that they could improve their services to the people, would be to tax, it could be a modest sales tax to these businesses that are established all across the country, all across the roadside. I don't know how they do that. I'm not here to solve their problems. I'm just, as I look and see what I see, okay, tax situations, right? This could help contribute to the national good. How they manage that, because it's every man and every woman for themselves, that's on them to figure it out. But, it's certainly, taxes is really something that they need to do. We've walked the entire wall, African Ancestry wall. This is the last ones we're coming. I'm looking at Nzinga right there. There's Sister Nzinga. Where's she at? There she is. Yes, you know about her, the Queen Nzinga. Fought the British over protecting the golden stool up there in the Ashanti region of Ghana. Just a lot of, like I said, freedom fighters here. Revolutionaries, there she is. There's a story over all of them. There's a Asantewa in Ghana who also fought against the British, male and female struggle fighters, modern times and in past Africa times. Yeah, Ghana, everybody. We're here. We're going to be here for a minute. And we're just providing you with content, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for, participating and supporting a brother. Okay, you can go. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on YouTube. We're on our page, Coffee Conversations with Greg J, at Facebook. We repurpose the audio so that you can hear it as a podcast across all podcast platforms: Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, Google, Amazon, you name it, man. We're out there just trying to do the doggone thing. The audio comes a little later in time, but this is what it is. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com, ColumbusSongCoffeeCompany.com. What else? We're just out there. Go ahead, Google it. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Now, just know that this is the home of culturally relevant conversations. We're not preaching hate. We're processing information for you, the people, our people, culturally relevant conversations from a global perspective. Thank you so much. And remember, love one another. Love one another. Love one another. Reporting live from the African Ancestry Wall, somewhere in Ghana, West Africa. It's great.